Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something dangerous and beautifully liberating. What if you stopped caring about everyone else's race and finally ran your own? Right now, you are exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much of what doesn't belong to you. You're chasing standards you didn't create, dreams that aren't yours, and validation from people who don't even know themselves. And deep down, you know this. That's why you're here. So stay, because by the end of this, something in you will shift. Not because I'm telling you anything new, but because I'm reminding you of what you already know, but have forgotten. You were never born to compete. This life isn't a contest, it's an expression. Every moment you waste comparing yourself to another, you abandon the one masterpiece you were meant to shape, yourself. The real win is not out there. It's in mastering your reactions, choosing your peace, and remembering who you are when the noise fades. You've been taught to seek applause, but applause is just noise. External validation is a trick. It keeps you running in circles, forever proving yourself to people who are doing the same. But the moment you stop performing and start being, something amazing happens. The world doesn't change. You do. Every time you measure yourself against someone else, you shrink. You start editing your truth to fit their template. But here's the secret. What makes them shine would dim in your hands. And what looks like success from the outside might be empty on the inside. You cannot compare paths when you were meant to walk different forests. Your attention is sacred, and whatever has it has you. So when you pour it into scrolling, worrying, judging, that's what multiplies. But when you focus inward on learning, healing, growing, you invest in the only thing you ever really had control over, you. We often confuse noise for victory, but the loudest person isn't the strongest. They're just the most afraid to be silent. Real success isn't clout or status or the illusion of winning. It's waking up in the morning and being at peace with yourself, regardless of where the world places you. You are the game and the player. You always have been, but somewhere along the way you forgot. You started believing you were just a piece on someone else's board, trying to move the right way, make the right impression, earn points from a system that doesn't even know your name. The truth is, no one out there knows how to play your game because it wasn't made for them. The rules, the purpose, the direction, it's all yours to define. When you focus on yourself, you begin to see that the real enemy was never outside of you. It was the distraction, the noise, the desperate scramble to fit into someone else's rhythm. That's not living, that's reacting. And when your life becomes a series of reactions, you start to forget what it feels like to move with intention. You weren't made to copy, you weren't made to chase, you were made to express. Your progress, your journey, your unfolding, it doesn't need to match a timeline, a trend, or a title. It just needs to be yours. People will tell you to keep up, to hustle harder, to prove your worth. But prove it to whom? You're not here to meet their expectations. You're here to explore your own potential. And the moment you stop running toward or away from anything and just start being with yourself, you start to feel something that looks and feels a lot like freedom. You're not late, you're not wrong. You're just caught in a game that isn't yours, but you can change that. You always could. The board, the rules, the direction. It's all waiting for you to stop watching others play and remember who was holding the pieces the entire time. The illusion of external validation is one of the most seductive traps we fall into. It begins so subtly, a compliment here, a like there, a nod of approval from someone we admire, and before we know it, our entire sense of worth is tied to how we're seen. We forget that the loudest applause often comes from the most distracted audience. We begin shaping ourselves like clay in other people's hands, molding our voice, our image, even our choices to fit an invisible standard we never agreed to. It feels good for a moment. Like sugar, it hits the system fast. But the crash always comes. Because the truth is, no amount of external praise can fill the absence of internal peace. You could be admired by millions and still feel like a stranger to yourself. That's the cost of chasing validation. You get seen but not known. You become visible, but only the version of you they want to see. And slowly, the real you starts to fade into the background. You start hesitating before speaking your truth, questioning your instincts, editing your essence. But that is not power. That is performance. You were not born to audition for your own life, the ones where no one's watching. The way you show up for yourself when there's no audience. The peace you feel when your actions match your values. The strength of knowing that even if no one claps, you're still proud. Because your worth was never meant to be measured in reactions. And once you realize that, once you stop reaching outward and start turning inward, you'll see it clearly that you were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to understand yourself. Comparison is a thief wearing your face. It doesn't show up as a stranger. It shows up disguised as you, whispering in your own voice, asking why you're not further along, why someone else seems to be shining while you're still struggling. It's subtle. It tells you its motivation, it pretends it's inspiration, but underneath its erosion, it chips away at your self-trust, little by little. It convinces you that someone else's path is more valid, more valuable, more beautiful, and in doing so, it blinds you to your own. The tragedy of comparison is not that we admire others, it's that we forget to admire ourselves. We see the highlight reels of other lives and use them as weapons against our own becoming. Your attention is your currency, and just like money, where you spend it determines what kind of life you're building. Every moment, every thought, every glance, it's an investment. When you scroll endlessly, when you obsess over what others are doing, when you pour your energy into fear, gossip, or doubt, you're spending the most valuable thing you have on things that give you nothing back. But most people never realize this. They wake up and give away their focus like it's limitless, like it costs nothing. But attention is sacred. It's the spotlight of your mind, and whatever it touches begins to grow. If you water chaos, you get more chaos. If you feed distraction, you get more noise. But when you begin to place your focus deliberately on your habits, your healing, your peace, your life begins to change in ways no one else can see at first. That's because true transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, daily, when you stop leaking energy into everything that isn't you. Most people are exhausted not from doing too much, but from thinking about too many things that don't matter. Imagine what would happen if all that energy went inward. Imagine if instead of watching others live, you started showing up for your own life with full presence. When you train your attention like a muscle, pulling it back from every distraction and placing it on your growth, you reclaim power you didn't even know you had lost. Suddenly, you're not overwhelmed, you're intentional, you're not drifting, you're designing, because the moment you start choosing where your mind goes, you stop being pulled by everything else. And that's when your life starts to align, not by accident, but by attention. Peace is the highest form of success. It doesn't make noise, it doesn't seek validation, it doesn't need to be posted, praised, or proven. It simply is. And yet, in a world wired for performance, peace is often mistaken for passivity. We're taught that to succeed, we must hustle, grind, compete, dominate. But that kind of success is loud, restless, and often built on anxiety. It might impress others, but it rarely satisfies the one living it. Because when your wins come at the cost of your calm, they aren't really wins, they're distractions dressed as achievement. True peace is not the absence of ambition, it's the presence of alignment. It's when your outer world no longer needs to scream because your inner world is finally quiet. It's when you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth because you've already accepted it yourself. Peace is walking into a room and not needing to be the most noticed. It's choosing silence over argument, presence over urgency, depth over display. It's letting go of the need to always respond, always fix, always prove. And when you find it, when you really taste it, they're the days when your roots are growing deeper, when you're learning patience, resilience, self-trust. But the world doesn't celebrate those moments. It claps for visible success, for titles, for milestones, for loud transformation. And in chasing that noise, we forget that becoming isn't about performance, it's about presence. You're not here to follow a map someone else drew. You're here to create your own step. Some people bloom early, some bloom late, and some bloom in ways no one ever expected. But all blooming is valid. All timelines are sacred. The question isn't, am I where I'm supposed to be? The question is, am I becoming more of who I truly am? Because if you are, even slowly, even painfully, then you're not behind. You're exactly on time. The pressure to rush, to force, to keep up, it fades when you realize that nothing meant for you will ever miss you. And nothing not meant for you is worth catching. You are not running out of time. You are unfolding. And the process doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. So in the end, it all comes back to this. When you choose to focus on yourself, you step out of the noise and into your truth. You stop running someone else's race and begin walking your own path. Steady, grounded, and honest. The world will keep trying to pull you in 1,000 directions, feeding you fear, urgency, and the illusion of lack, but you don't have to answer every call. You don't have to chase every spotlight. Real winning doesn't happen in the eyes of others. It happens in the quiet, unwavering knowing that you are becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Focus on yourself. Build your peace. Honor your pace. That's not selfish. That's sacred. Because the moment you return to you, fully and without apology, you don't just win, you finally remember what it means to live